People who had COVID-19 or know someone who did, how bad was it? Welcome back, guys. Just to let you know, this video is going to be pretty intense. Some of these stories are not for the faint-hearted, so I just wanted to advise you guys before we get into it. I'm currently recovering. I'm a 30-year-old male with no health issues, so maybe that's the reason, but for me, it was like a mild cold. Felt crummy from Tuesday night to Thursday, started feeling better Friday. Now I just have a bit of a cough and weird headaches. The testing process was a pain though. First one was inconclusive, so I had to get a DRS note and go get another test. Be careful, that was me at the start of my symptoms before it came back and knocked me on my ass completely for 2 months. The stories of the early false recovery are real, so take it super easy and don't overexert yourself for a week. Same here, fever at 101 to 103 for 12 days straight, bedridden for 6 whole weeks. Thought I got better, got sick again, and now I'm here. Still have to take it easy because I get winded just from walking upstairs. I hope the damage isn't too serious. I had it. I was basically bedridden for 2 weeks, barely doing anything except sleeping. Even then I kept waking up at night, a sweaty mess. I spread it to all my family members, but they showed extremely minor symptoms, pretty weird stuff. When I had COVID-19, I developed hives. The onset of COVID-19 was extremely sudden, developing hives and a fever of 102 within an hour. I was also very confused and tired all the time. I didn't go outside much prior to getting COVID-19. I did make a full recovery within 2 weeks. I did not require hospital care. Same. I had fever, chills, bed-soaking sweats, horrible muscle aches, headaches, overwhelming fatigue, and diarrhea. I did not have shortness of breath or a cough. No one else in my house, including my husband, kids, and elderly mother, got anything other than a minor sniffle. My cousin ended up on a respirator in ICU. She finally got off the respirator, but passed from a blood clot the next day. 30-year-old friend had it. He was so sick that his roommates were almost afraid to check on him in his room because they thought they'd find him dead. Getting out of bed to go to the bathroom took all of his strength. He's fine now, but it took a few weeks for his lungs to feel even remotely normal. My mother-in-law had something like this in January, before it was a thing, but we swear she had it. She would call us for help, and me or my wife would go over, we live 5 minutes away, and help her get something. She said she was out of breath walking to her bathroom, and then out of breath walking back after using it. It was wild. We all want to get antibody tests as soon as they're available. My trainer at the gym had it. She is an ordinary healthy woman in her 40s and very fit. She had high fever, it was hard to breathe, exhaustion and brutal muscle aches. She found it hard to walk across her bedroom. She lost her sense of smell also. Suspected neurological symptoms too. Memory problems and trouble finding words. 3 weeks after her quarantine ended, she still feels like shit. She's out of breath very easily. I saw her loading groceries into her car and it was hard for her. She is still having memory problems. She recovered at home, not hospital. This is the first in the thread that sounds like my experience. Mid-40s, day 1 felt like a cold, day 2 raging headache, day 3 raging headache and loss of smell and taste. They came back slowly and dulled just in time for breathing to get difficult. Just laying down felt like I couldn't get a full breath, still with a headache. So, worst hangover ever with a side of asthma. Oh, and lingering neuro issues, aphasia and poor memory and can't concentrate. At the end of week 2, I tried to have a call with my client. During the call, they texted my boss to say I wasn't ready to work yet, and I'm constantly out of breath. And if I breathe too deep, my lungs will catch and just exhale rapidly, which makes me more out of breath. I want to take a deep breath, and it just happens in a loop until I'm exhausted. And this is a month after I was cleared by my local Department of Health. Never had a fever higher than 99, and only for 1 night. For a full month after this shit started, you couldn't even get a test if you didn't have a fever and a few other symptoms. So frustrating. ICU nurse checking in. I just got cleared to go back to work tomorrow after testing positive a couple of weeks ago. How bad was it compared to the COVID patients I've treated? Nothing. I didn't even have a fever or shortness of breath. Our ICU patients are so sick. All the things you've heard about on the news. Hypoxia, blood clots, multi-system organ failure. We've had many people in their 30s and 40s with no pre-existing conditions who've ended up just as sick as the 80-year-olds, and many of them haven't had good outcomes, sadly. I work at a major hospital where we routinely get the sickest patients transferred to us from smaller hospitals, so I realise I'm seeing the extreme opposite end of the spectrum, but it is scary. My symptoms were all so minor and non-specific that I blew them off or chalked them up to other things. Spring allergies, dry hospital air, sleeping poorly on my shitty mattress, working overtime for several days until I realised I completely, profoundly lost my sense of smell and taste. That's when I knew I had to get tested. Lo and behold, it was positive. It sucked, but I'm very grateful I wasn't any sicker than I was, and especially that I have health insurance and work at a place that paid for my COVID-specific sick leave as well as having paid sick leave in general. I know there are so many other people out there who don't have such a safety net, and it seems very unfair. I've been hearing a lot about the hidden cardiac symptoms. Do you mind me asking how the perception of the disease in your ICU has changed since the beginning of the pandemic as we learn more about it? Thank you for the amazing work you do, and I'm glad you are feeling well. My grandmother got it. In her late 80s and in a nursing home, she probably weighs 70 pounds and could barely sit up on the best of days. She had a fever for a week and a mild cough, then recovered. We're shocked. She's so weak that when the home told us she had it, we all thought she had no chance of beating it. Weird how it can kill strong, healthy people, but somehow spare her. It's a crapshoot. Age and health can weight in one way or the other, but there's really no absolute guarantee in either direction for any specific person as to how it's going to go. My friend is in Italy. He got it and was sick, bedridden for a week while his girlfriend had just some aches. Both his parents, his grandparents, and his uncle died, all within a week. To lessen the horror, I will add that his aunt had it too, but recovered. Sorry, it's a rough one for a Monday. Oh my god, I can't even imagine the pain. My uncle died from it. He died at his house while in self-quarantine. Didn't know he died until after. He didn't call or answer his phone after 2 days. Sorry for your loss. My sister, who was 47 with no underlying health issues, passed away from COVID-19. It took 10 days. She was in the hospital for the last 3. The scary part is she was making a recovery. Her lungs at day 7 were operating at 83%, and after 2 days in the hospital, she had got them to 95%. In 29 hours, it was a complete 180. I was able to text with her. She kept saying she was having a really tough time, but didn't go into too much detail. My brother-in-law and 2 nephews also had it. He mistakenly thought his COVID was just from a good gym workout, as his body was just really sore. My nephew, aged 13, puked one night and had a fever for hours. The youngest, aged 7, never had any symptoms and felt fine. All tested positive. That's just horrific. I am so sorry for you and your family. I've had 4 people in my life pass from it so far. Number 1, former co-worker and friend was one of the first people in the US to die from it. He was 34 years old and only had childhood asthma. Number 2, a great friend and collaborator I had just stayed with a month before. He was 39 years old and no pre-existing conditions. Number 3, my best friend's mother, who was like a second mother to me. She was 63 years old with no pre-existing conditions. Number 4, my grandmother, who was in a nursing home. She was 90 and was relatively healthy for her age. All passed within 2 weeks of showing symptoms. With the exception of my grandma, they all were home for the first week, then were admitted to the hospital as their conditions worsened. I'm so sorry you lost so many loved ones. I hope you find the strength to recover. Stay safe. My friend was tested positive. He is quarantined at home with a little fever, muscle pain, and a light cough. He is getting better every day, it seems. I hope he continues to recover. I'm 32, and it was the sickest I have ever been. 2 weeks of fever over 101, bad cough that lasted almost a month, shortness of breath where if I walked more than a few steps, I would end up doubled over, gasping for air. It was pretty bad, but at least I'm all better now. All the edits. Damn, that blew up in the few hours I was asleep. Number 1, thank you to everyone for everything. Number 2, my general condition before this was good. No underlying conditions. I was in really good shape, in the gym mostly every day. Number 3, yeah, it really sucked. I was never really in fear though, because I caught it early enough that it wasn't really hyped that much. I think it was March 3rd that I went to the hospital. Number 4, I work as an Uber driver on the weekends, so I'm guessing that's how I caught it. Number 5, I was on an inhaler for a while afterwards. I tried working out about 3 weeks after I initially got sick. That was a joke. I literally ended up on my back wheezing and hacking 2 minutes into the workout. I'm pretty much fully recovered now. The only effects I'm still feeling are just from taking so much time off from working out. I think that's the gist of most of the questions. If you have a burning one that I didn't answer, I'm sorry. Feel free to ask me again. One more super important edit. Everything I have seen and read about this is that it affects everyone differently. Please don't read what I did and think that it's great advice or anything like that. I would hate for someone to get worse because they listened to my dumbass on Reddit. Please listen to your doctors. Adam is a beast. Glad you're better, bro. 3 friends, 2 of which had families. One was living alone, so they all decided to live with each other at the alone guy's house so their families didn't have to suffer the illness, and if one of them got badly sick, the less sick guys could take care of him. They got a bad fever and a dry cough, and one of them lost his sense of taste for a little while afterwards, but they came out of it fine otherwise. Glad to hear they were looking out for each other. As someone who lives alone, my worst fear is being in terrible condition and no one is there, or worse, my stubborn parents decide to risk their health and stay with me. My mum went from minor tickling throat to being taken away in an ambulance by people in hazmat 3 days later, unable to breathe. 2 weeks later, she died. No major health issues. She was sedated as soon as she went into hospital and on a ventilator for the duration. Eventually her organs started failing and there was nothing else they could do other than turn the ventilator off and let her go. Thank you for all the awards and messages, etc. I wasn't expecting it. I know in most cases something like this is difficult to talk about, but because of the current global situation, it all seems unreal. I don't mind talking about this and answering questions. Obviously it is such a weird virus, my mum's experience may be different to others. It kind of feels like she is lost at sea. She went away and we couldn't see her. Now we are just waiting for the knock on the door with her ashes and someone saying, "I'm sorry for your loss." I'm sorry for your loss. I've lost a parent too. Different circumstances, however. If you would like to talk, I am here. Had a patient die on Saturday from COVID-19 respiratory failure. The entire month had 6 patients die. Literally Saturday I just sat in my car and cried. It's difficult seeing people lose moms, dads, brothers. Can't imagine how that feels. It makes me really appreciate how strong you gotta be to keep going. Thank you. I had 2 friends with it, both with no underlying health issues, both in their early 30s. One had minor symptoms and recovered after a few weeks. The other struggled to breathe, so she went to the hospital, was put on a ventilator, then slipped into a coma and died. I'm so sorry. That's the most terrifying thing about this virus to me. It's just so random who gets hit hard. Currently in the hospital with it in my early 20s. I rode it out for a week until I couldn't breathe. Sickest I've ever been and never had to be hospitalised before now. Going home tomorrow though, so that's good. I'm recovering now. Do you have any suspicions as to how you caught it? How careful were you in trying to avoid it? PPE, washing hands, distancing, etc. Glad you're okay. It's hard to tell. I assume work now though, and I wore masks and washed hands a lot and avoided work until I had to go back. I'm a furniture salesman, but I'm the only one who got sick, and I left the second I had a reoccurring cough. My sister was an extremely healthy non-smoker who works at a prominent hospital. She was exposed to one of the hospital's first corona patients weeks and weeks ago when naivety was very much a thing and precaution wasn't taken very seriously. The patient tested negative, but then positive after her exposure. She didn't take the same precautions because he tested negative when he was in fact positive. She certainly contracted the virus despite testing negative twice. She was ungodly sick, and even weeks and weeks later, she's still using an inhaler and has a lasting cough and perhaps lung inflammation and damage. She's 31. Just to confirm though, she's still alive, right? You have me worried with all the wazes. I'm so sorry for her pain. This sounds so hard. Has a lasting cough. I mean, unless a dead person can still cough, I think she's Gucci. So, my dad tested positive, and right now for him, it's just like a bad flu. Because the test results come back 3 days later, we continue to act normally as a family, so my mom and I probably have it too. We are almost 100% positive that my mom also has it because she is losing her sense of smell and has been having similar symptoms like my dad. There is a big chance I have it too, but I have not presented any symptoms so far. I hope everything will be fine for you all. And I think that's a sentiment that can be extended to everyone who's been affected by this. And I hope you're all doing well out there.